Joining us for a little bit is Dr. Loren Scott, economist emeritus for the entire state of Louisiana. How's that? Hey, Dr. Scott, welcome to Keel. How you doing this morning?
Dandy. How about you folks?
Well, I know you're on I think it's the legislative task force, and I'm sure that a lot of other folks are asking your advice. I guess start us off here. Just give us in maybe 45 seconds to a minute your thoughts on the current state of the economy in Louisiana.
Well, it's unlike anything we've ever seen before. I've done some rough estimates on what I think the unemployment rate is going to be when it's for April, which is our first full month of shutdown. And my estimate is going to be roughly around 20%, about a fifth of our workforce that is out of work and not able to work from home. They work for a restaurant, and the restaurant's not open.
How many is that? How many people is that?
It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 people.
So basically, pardon me just a second, Doc. So what you're saying is, because there's about 20% of Louisiana that's not even in the workforce, that's just on some sort of program. So now we're talking literally 40% of Louisiana is jobless, right?
No, it's not going to be that. No, it's not going to be that high. Well, the way the unemployment rate is measured is the U.S. Department of Labor does surveys in the week that includes the 12th day of the week, 12th day of the month, and they ask the question on the phone: are you working? No. Are you looking for work? Yes. If you answer in that order, then you're counted as being unemployed. Now, before we went into this shelter in place, we already had about 110,000 people that were counted as unemployed. And we had a relatively high unemployment rate because of some problems going on, number one, in our oil patch, and number two, because of a big downturn in the construction sector that took place, especially in 2019. And what we're doing now is we're adding about another 300,000 to that group. So the total turns out to be around 400,000 if you include the people that are already unemployed before we went into this, and then the people that are there now. So that's about 400,000 out of about 2 million. So it's getting close to about a fifth of the workforce.
If folks answered,
is that too much math? Is that too much
no,
math?
and let me ask you one more follow up on that. If folks answered that question, are you working? No. Are you looking for work? No. They weren't even counted, though.
They're not even counted.
How many of them are there?
Those are people that are not counted in the labor force.
How many of them are there?
I do not have that answer off the top of my head. Sorry about that. But it's usually about 60% of the population is in the workforce, and our population is about 4.4 million.
Okay.
So I have to go back and look. I'm not sure what the answer is. Sorry.
Dr. Scott,
you're not supposed to ask me questions.
Sorry about that.
No, we got you off there. Let me start here. This is a question. This is a question that I've asked just about everybody who's smart. Jay Darden, I asked, John Kennedy, a couple of other folks. And it has to do, in my mind, somewhere along the line, the governor or people in charge, no matter what state it happens to be, in my mind, they have to have asked the question, how long can we go on lockdown, on quarantine? What's the longest we can go and still come back, i.e. not take the economy over a cliff? And nobody seems to say, yeah, we asked that. Here's what it is. What do you think about that question? Do you think it's something do you think it's something that's come up at all anywhere?
Yeah, it comes up all the time. As a matter of fact, those of us who do forecasting, that's precisely what we're struggling with right now. And if you look at the forecasts that are going on out there about when we might recover, when we might get started back up again, how bad the whole downturn is going to be, what you will find, like, for example, there's an outfit called Consensus Forecast USA, and it's an average about 45 different forecasting firms in the country. Typically, the difference between the most pessimistic and the most optimistic firm in that group for, say, forecasting real gross domestic product growth is anywhere, it's maybe 2 percentage points difference between them. Now that difference is on the order of 9 percentage points. I mean, there's so much uncertainty about this. Now, what I would tell people as they think this through is it's important to note if you went back to January and looked at the forecasts that were taking place in January, the national economy was in really good shape, and the Louisiana economy was in relatively good shape. We were getting ready to go into 2020, 2021, growing pretty smartly. Nobody was forecasting a recession on the horizon, and we were 127 months into our national boom period, the longest boom period in modern history, and we're expected to keep growing. There was basically nothing fundamentally wrong with the economy. That's important to remember, because what we're going through now is not because there's, say, a problem in the housing industry, a bubble there, or a bubble in the tech industry. It's going on strictly because of the shelter in place. So what we're hoping is lift the shelter in place, and because the underlying fundamentals of the economy are good, then we will snap back pretty quickly to where we were, to that growth path we were back in January. Now, a lot of that depends upon how quickly I'm going to be comfortable being around 2,000 of my favorite friends at one time without a mask on. But still, I mean, it's important to keep that in the back of your head.
But doesn't it depend on if they're
solid?
Doesn't it depend, Dr. Scott, on whether or not your job is still there? Some of these jobs are going to be permanently gone. Isn't that a concern?
Well, I would think that, and I would worry about that if this thing lasts well into the summer. But if the stay-at-home order is lifted in mid-May, and who knows, it may be lifted even before that. I think what you're going to see is folks reopening. Because, again, it's not like there was something bad wrong in the economy to begin with. Everything's still there. People want to eat out, and people want to go to movies and want to go to casinos in your particular area of the state. It's just that they're forced by a government edict to stay at home. And so I think it's, this PPP program is designed to help firms get through this, pay their utility bill, pay their mortgage and things like that, pay their employees during this transitionary time period. So I think there's a real good possibility, and I'm always been on the optimistic side, that we'll pop back out of it, and everything. It's going to be interesting to see. If you folks call me at the end of July, and let's see how we think looking back on this particular time period. See whether we overreacted or underreacted to how bad it is.
You said a second ago you'd like to look on the optimistic side, so tell me something optimistic about the oil business in Louisiana.
Oh, man. Well, short run, there's absolutely nothing optimistic. Unfortunately, right now, what's going on the oil side is that we have an amazing amount of oil being pumped right now that should not have been pumped. I mean, the Saudis made just a gross error back in early March when they decided to add another 2.5 million barrels of oil to what was being produced. At the very same time, there was this dramatic drop in the demand for oil, about 29 million barrels a day out of 100 million barrels per day. So you had a big decrease in demand, and then they pumped a bunch more oil in the market. And now, even if the coronavirus shelter in place is taken away today, we have this huge ocean of oil that is stored in tank farms and pipelines in very large crude carriers. It's being stored, salt domes, wherever we can store it. We have got all this excess oil that we're going to have to work off when the demand returns. We have to work off that big excess in oil before the price even starts to go up again. So we got a real problem. There's not a whole lot of, in the short run, happy stuff, but in the long run, I think once we work that off, again, the underlying fundamentals of the economy are good. The demand will come back. Pretty soon we'll all be flying again and driving again. We're surely hoping so. So that demand will return, and you'll see the prices pop back up. But in the meantime, it's going to be uglier than a train wreck.
Dr. Scott, one more thing. Government.
Yeah.
Shreveport's government's lost $25 million in sales tax revenue, etc. Bossier, $12.5 million. Looks like the state budget might be facing $500 million. How does government recover from that? You can't. Our city is in bad shape financially. How are we going to recover from losing $25 million?
Well, of course, the big hope is that Congress in this next round, and this is a very hot topic right now, is that in this next round of stimulus package, they're going to take care of state and local governments because that is a real significant issue right now. By the way, Shreveport had a problem even before the coronavirus came along.
Oh yeah,
because your employment has been in a slide since about 2006 or something like that. It's been it's about 2009, I think it is. And so you were already having to struggle with what was going on with your employment in general before that. But the great hope for state and local governments is that this next stimulus package will have some relief in it for state and local governments. That's a dicey thing for the feds to deal with because they're not really amused about bailing out places like Chicago and New York and other places that have these remarkably generous pension plans. And, the rest of the people in the United States are bailing those folks out. They're not very amused about that. But that's their one great hope. Otherwise, going into the next fiscal year, you're going to see some serious budget cuts that are going to have to take place. And unfortunately, in Louisiana, there's only two places at the state level you can cut, and that's higher ed and health care. So it's going to be a not very fun legislative session for the legislature and the governor coming up.